Sweetheart, this is a corporate office. We do not negotiate with Shark Tank. Denise from HR says it's junior staff. Shouted to my face immediately after I handed her a 14-page document that outlines I'd onboard every system I'd purchased from the vendor. Clean and every blazing bag of. I hosed down the compliance dog. The rest of the squad were too busy. I didn't circle back on lunch orders. I didn't yell. I didn't even flinch when she was condescending. Little head tilt, you know the one where it appears they're attempting to hear. Your soul crumpled, and I merely nodded slowly. Quiet as if I were stuffing a bullet in the chamber, but let me back up for 1 week. Before our little HR exorcism, I was consuming lukewarm instant noodles. The break room was filled with the fragrance of burnt popcorn and betrayal, all done manually. Resolving a vendor import that should have been handled by automated tools 3 years ago, but our tools were broken and antiquated. Half of the integrations were so twisted. It appeared like someone had shoved spaghetti code into a meat grinder, then let Steve duct tape it together while seizure I remained up late every night. I fixed what I could and rerouted 3 handcrafted API paths. I investigated a ghost billing issue that had been bleeding $22,000 every month since. Throughout March, my manager Brad, who previously forwarded me an email, he himself was CC'd on, was too busy demonstrating the company Slack emoji wall for new interns. Yeah, when I came into HR, it wasn't with ego. The findings were exhaustion proven. I wasn't demanding a crown, I just wanted the damn dignity of a wage increase that resembled the blood I was wringing in my keyboard, and I got lover anyway. If you're nodding, you should be right around here. Head, thinking, yep, I've been there. Then it would mean everything if you hit that subscribe button. I'm clawing my way. Congratulations to my first 10,000 subscribers, and each click helps me ignite another imaginary HR Denise in the sun. All back to the story of corporations, sabotage and righteous resurrection. So I left HR's crypt with a straight face. But my knuckles white. Denise smiled entire time, as if she just we did some kind of mercy killing. I genuinely value you, she said, and we simply must be fair to the rest of the squad. The team that worried when I took 1 sick day, 3 vendor portals. They locked themselves out as nervous breakdowns in a trench coat. I didn't fury, I didn't even vent, I just went home. Brewed a cup of stale peppermint tea. I opened my own laptop and logged in. I joined LinkedIn for the first time in 4 months. I did not even update my headline. I just scrolled through all vendors, partner and logistics company we'd ever so as CC'd in a group email. My search history became a hit list in 2 days. Later, I received a message that read, "Hey, your name came during an internal audit. You are the someone who fixed our contract portal last quarter." Right, it was from a senior analyst at one of our largest clients. I had to deal with a medical logistics business, babysit through 3 onboarding disasters and 2 outages resulting from our lazy integration team. He wanted to meet informally, simply to probe my brain. I took PTO, smiled like if this was a real vacation. I did not even tell Brad why I would Brad. I still assumed I was a contractor and sat in their glass-walled office, sipping real first coffee in a month. While they asked me about their own systems, it turns out that we are still being stomped by my previous company's lazy coding base. They did not want a consultant. They requested a cleaner, and I was already holding the mop when I left it. They handed me a bunch of documentation. No pressure, they said. Just think about it. It is full-time and offers a better title. Money, more autonomy, and one little kicker: they requested help preparing the imminent vendor audit of my. I walked home in a foggy wind, slicing through my sleeves, and I smiled. Not like a lottery winner. However, as someone who has just seen the floorboard creak beneath the guy who thinks he's safe, therefore I didn't have to shout. I did not have to fight, I simply had to wait and sharpen the knife for the work. Boards became my nightlight after that. During an HR meeting, I stopped binge-watching true crime and began living it, scrolling through listings like they were criminals. DOS's system analyst, integration specialist, vendor compliance manager. Every posting was cross-referenced with our partner directory as I was going. A sting operation. I didn't apply it widely. Smart only for companies that have touched anyone who has ever been burned by one of our botched deployments. Billing. Congratulations on overcoming mistakes and API meltdowns. I made my shortlist by midnight. Desktop resembled a computerized battle room. Chrome tabs flaring, resume versions numbered like SQL titles, coffee rings bleeding on a printed spreadsheet of past support tickets I'd personally resolved but never received credit for it. This was war, and I wasn't going to the front. I was the weapon. 2 days into the undercover. During my employment search, I received an email that halted me. Cold subject: quick sync vendor audit. I had no idea who the sender was. I chatted directly with James, a senior system director at Gen Access Logistics, one of our company's largest and oldest customers. If we were the greasy mechanic shop, there were the guy still allowing us check his brakes every quarter because switching garages was too disruptive. He said, apparently my name had come up. He saw it buried in an old support ticket trail. I discovered a recurrent credential mistake that was misfiled as an external defect. Their side has flagged it, logged it, and then quietly moved on. We resolved it, and his email said I assumed you were responsible for everything. Serious work. You are available for a fast chat? I glanced at the screen for a while. Not just because someone noticed me. However, because someone recognized accurately, story. I picked a Friday and burned one of my PTO days and informed Brad that I was finally going. He barely got his dental work done. Looked up from his phone, probably. I thought I was going to spend a lengthy weekend. Emotionally recover from the sweetheart gate. I smiled and let him walk into Gen Access headquarters sporting the same blazer I wore to my last genuine date. They seated me down in a glass conference room. Citrus water and project whiteboard, still soiled with faded panic notes from their last vendor sync. James leaned in, true professional, polite, didn't squander. We don't want to throw your. He threw the employer under the bus, yet we have. I've been seeing your name come up everywhere when something is actually completed. Honestly, our systems are being held along with zip ties and PDF exports. We suppose you can help. We didn't need another post-mortem report was needed. Surgery: the vendor portal has failed. 3 logins in the last week, triggering internal ticket loops for billing. Files arrived encrypted under a protocol we deprecated 2 years ago, and they had half-implemented single sign-on flow. Still routed admin resets to a no reply inbox, everything traced back to us. Or to the portions of us that have not been identified. I didn't sell myself hard. They had already built my resume based on the breadcrumbs I left behind. I don't want to cause any conflict. Gently drinking their espresso as it didn't just outperform every coffee I ever Made in the workplace, Keurig James nodded. Like he respected the play, of course. Just exploring, we wrapped in under an. After an hour, he walked me out with a handshake. And the kind of faint nod that tells. Well, talk again soon. I walked. I returned to my apartment with a bag of. I don't remember ordering takeaway, and. I stared at my inbox till 1 a.m. The communication arrived before morning formal. We would love to accept the attached offer without any pressure. Have you in time for the Q4 audit? Old firms that are up for assessment could benefit from. Interpreter who knows where the bodies are buried. My mouse hovered over the. For quite some time, the download button. It wasn't merely an escape hatch. The staircase of junior hell and the one. My former employer would have to. I was smiling when you looked me in the face. Living a double life by day, I was the junior analyst, no one CCD unless something was already on fire at night. I spent the weekend as a digital surgeon. Cutting cancer out of Gen Axis backend systems with surgical accuracy and a side of petty vengeance. I started small. I retrieved the old error logs I'd saved in my personal drive for training. Wink wink, parsing through ticket IDs. I remembered handling but was never credited for rebuilding credential chains. I created diagrams on sticky notes till desk resembled a corkboard from a. I discovered subroutines in the conspiracy document. Buried like landmines, functions left undocumented, deprecated libraries. Added to production since Steve once. I saw a blog post that said backward compatibility was for cowards. Junkyard, and somehow it was mine that I spent. Saturday reverse engineering. Integration points from memory on. Sundays I turned them into slides. Recommendations danger indicators are high. Priority refactors generated access aided up. Like candy wrapped in obedience. CTO began looping me into Slack. Conversations I was invited to private. Zoom calls off recording hours, but with serious eyes on the other end, one by one. They started treating me as a specialist, not junior, not temporary. Sweetheart at the workplace, same old script. Brad started emailing me requests for polish. Update this dashboard or reformat these. He never requested leadership reports. How did such dashboards even pull data? The pie charts simply appeared less threatening. HR did not check in. Denise smiled at me once in the corridor, like if I was a house splint she'd forgotten about. Everyone assumed I was content. Quite innocuous, however. My resignation letter was saved on my desktop as a folder. Known as housekeeping, all it required was. Meanwhile, Gen Access has started. Opening doors offered me a limited sandbox. Access trusted me to look into their compliance holes. I flagged concerns and backed up with receipts and offered solutions packaged in legal comfort. Vendor-safe wording. They started calling me their bridge, the only person who could disentangle the mess without setting off landmines. I became their living Rosetta Stone for understanding. Why were their bills and reports late? Were off, and their gateway sometimes acted as though it was haunted by a drunk raccoon. The adrenaline was addictive. After a long day at work, I return home and drop my suitcase. I'm looking forward to starting up terminal window because I was over there. Trusted respect paid for my mind, not punished for breaking one of the. Point came during a Gen Access leadership huddle in which they silently proposed the notion of replacing our firm. As the vendor of record, legal had issues. Lead the audit. Logistics had headaches, but then the vice president. Ops looked directly at me through the. Zoomed in and asked, what if she didn't? Just consider what if she ran it. Silence, then you mean lead the audit? He nodded. Not only the audit. System procurement integration. She is already familiar with long-term compliance. More than the firm we pay 6 figures to. Every quarter. That night I received an official offer. Full-time title lead. The remuneration for systems auditors has nearly doubled. What I made while playing dashboard built for Brad, they wanted me on board before. The next vendor audit required someone who could not only disclose what happened wrong, but prove it by cleaning it. Restructure it so it never went that way. Wrong again, I didn't accept right away. Not because I questioned it, but because of revenge. Like wine, subpoenas are better aged. My resignation would come, but not yet. First, I needed to make sure I walked out on the very same Monday, I'll be walking back in with another badge. I handed him my resignation on Wednesday morning. Sandwiched between 2 consecutive meetings. No one invited me to speak in HR. The portal made me feel as if unsubscribing from a rather dull newsletter. Please confirm goodbye, Denise. Didn't even call me for an escape interview, just sent me an automatically produced email containing a PDF named Transition Guidance for Departing Junior Employees. Nobody saw the irony of the PDF. The file itself was corrupt. I laughed alone. And dubbed it Poetry Brad, of course. I discovered a way to make it about him. Sauntered over to my desk, his customary a combination of Axe body spray and mild condescension leaned on the divider like we were old army mates, and remarked, "So I guess you're jumping ship, Jen." Axis goes through analysts, like my ex. Passes via crystals. I handed him a nice smile, the one you save for Uber drivers who share excessively about their good luck, he added with a chuckle. You'll be back, everyone comes back. Everyone but me, since while he was butchering analogies and utilizing my mouse, he scrolled through a pivot table. Didn't realize I was already inside. Jen accesses systems map them. Triaging and editing my James audit roadmap was halfway complete. Had linked me into the internal security threads using the alias. During consultant phase 0, I was neck deep in diagnostic reports from a decade. Vendor neglect, I could name every shortcut our organization took. Cover every certificate that has expired. Without regeneration, every place. I did not encrypt because the client refused. They noticed, and now I was there. Microscope during the next 2 weeks. Played the great departing ghost. Responded emails I gave over half-baked. Paperwork that provides just enough information to look helpful, but not enough to be useful. I attended my final team meeting with my camera turned off and my microphone. Nobody questioned about the convenient glitching. Everyone assumed where I was headed was sideways or down, as they always do. I cleaned out my desk on Friday afternoon while everyone else was occupied. Fury slacking in the new cafeteria. Coffee policy, my cardboard box was half emptiness, a cracked cup, a single sticky note with a quotation from Goodwill Hunting and a mechanical keyboard I purchased on my own money because the office sounded like typing on toast before I went. I pulled up my old personal planner paper. I switched schools 2 weeks ago. Forward and wrote in block letters. Monday is audit day. I emphasized that. 2 times stepping out of that building felt. Molting is the process of losing a skin. Had gotten stale, scratchy, and beneath notice. I did not turn around, for why would I? The next time I walked through those The doors would not be via the side. Enter with a chipped badge and a $5 access key would be through the front. Lobby with a laptop full of evidence. A contract that required them to answer to me. The doors hissed open as they recognized me, and perhaps they did the same. Office building has the same beige lobby. It smelled like printer toner and ambition. However, this time I wasn't carrying my lunch in a canvas tote while praying. Someone did not mistakenly eat it again. I was wearing a fitted navy blazer jacket. Badge clipped cleanly to my lapel. The laptop bag weighed more than some of the egos. Upstairs security waved me through without a second glance. New company, new clearance, fresh smile at the. In the elevator, I saw a reflection of myself. In the mirrored panel, similar eyes. Spine, but the woman looks back at me. She wasn't fatigued, she wasn't overlooked. She wasn't part of the junior staff. They didn't know who they were. The elevator dinged the moment. When the doors opened, I witnessed a ripple of shock. Recognition, confusion, as someone had. Kyle summoned a ghost wearing a pantsuit. Data blinked so hard at his spectacles. Slipped off, two engineers murmured as I passed past one of them, mouthing, "Is that her?" as if I had resurrected from the grave. Instead of their own blind spots. Then HR Denise stood outside of the fishbowl meeting room holds her reusable water bottle shaped like a crucifix. I observed her eyes scanning my badge. She realized it wasn't a friendly. This was a business-related catch-up visit. Back, she said the words physically. Ouch, thanks, I said, I'm here for the. She tried to smile but came out. Looked as if she bit down on a lemon. You're supporting the crew from Jen. Axis. I opened my laptop just enough to her to see the header on the first slide. Lead systems auditor external compliance liaison. Her throat clicked when she swallowed at the conference. The VP of operations, Greg, once told me I had tremendous potential once I matured. Professionally stood up and knocked down his coffee spilled across a mound of. I manually created printed spreadsheets. He understood that 3 versions were out of date. Wiped his fingers on his tie and attempted to pretend this was usual. I didn't know. Will you be joining us? He said. I thought I was overcompensating so much. I slid into a vein that may explode in his neck. The seat at the head of the table is not the side, not the corner of the head joining. I mentioned booting up my machine, but no, I'm leading this one with full systems and compliance audit retroactive for 12 months. Silence that settles like fog. The audit. In a graveyard, Greg blinked. 12 months, yes. I stated, scrolling based on clause 9.3 of your contract with Gen Access. They have the right to audit all vendor-facing systems. Integration logs, credential management, history and compliance certifications. Going back a full year, I have already examined your vendor's onboarding flow. I will need access to all legacy integration tickets by end of day. Denise dropped her pen. Someone cursed under their breath, and I grinned, not a broad grin, not overly theatrical, just enough to suggest. I warned you, but only in the terms that underestimated their ability to communicate, because here's the problem about ghosts, they don't knock, they stroll straight through the walls. You promised to hold, and I didn't need to. Raising my voice was all I needed. Paperwork, and I had ample 3 days into the audit, and the walls were already beginning to report my findings. The files had developed into a digital crime scene. Mislabeled credential chains, login tokens exchanged across departments, like office birthday cake has exhausted compliance. Certifications that have not been renewed since the Obama administration, and Vendor accounts with full administrative access. Awarded to former employees who hadn't worked there from before the pandemic. Gen Access had given me complete access. I didn't waste a second on any report I compiled had timestamps metadata. Archived Slack threads with decisions. Manufacturers pretended nothing was wrong. Systems oozed data like open wounds. By Thursday, the room felt 10 degrees colder. The vice president of operations appeared to be chewing. I used tinfoil every time I opened my mouth. Legal joined via Zoom, finance ceased. Pretended they weren't hearing from the hallway, then came the cherry on top. Create a shared credentials spreadsheet. Saved in a public SharePoint folder. Named Vendor Access Final V4 Edit Reel. Use this XLSX unencrypted without access logs. Last changed by wait for it, an intern. I deliberately clicked the file open. This one is my favorite, I said. Projecting the spreadsheet onto the conference room screen appeared to be kindergarten show and tell. Denise from HR said that the file was never intended to be permanent. No joke, I responded to the compliance policy literally prohibits. Shared login records are unprotected repository, and yet here we are. Edited 9 times, opened 37 times. 3 of those are from outside the network IP. By the way, address is in New Jersey. Does not match your internal VPN? Footprint. Greg tried to clear his throat. To conjure the spirit of authority well. It's difficult to determine who exactly was responsible for that, presumably the junior analyst previously. What was her name? Turned to face him completely. I believe it. It was me, and the quiet was biblical. Denise blinked, dropped her eyes, and I let it breathe for a beat or two, then I gently passed a folder across the table. I would be pleased to provide a written. Would you wish your statement to be notarized? The legal representative in Zoom unmuted just to. The client coughed loudly toward the conclusion of the day. The client formally halted all payments to my former employer, pending a full internal review. Procurement froze. Support escalations have increased on Slack. Channels packed with execs panic. Pinging younger developers for answers. Lacked knowledge and had no desire to study. That night, I received an SMS from James. Nice effort, Gen Access. Keep it up. See what more we find. Oh, I plan to. Had scarcely cracked open the integrations. Directory actual RO hadn't yet begun to stench yet, but it will, and when it does. The people who declared me invisible would forced to study every line of every. They made a mistake by signing the junior analyst they should have bargained with. On Friday morning, the firm was hemorrhaging dignity like a gas leak. In a candle shop, Greg tried to remain calm. During the morning check-in, stated phrases like isolated incident and correction. Action plan, such as shuffling the deck. Chairs aboard a burning cruise ship, Denise. She disappeared from the audit floor. Most likely hidden in some HR backroom. Burning sage over her expired policies, but panic seeped through you. I could feel it in the air like static. Prior to a lightning strike, engineers. Someone I hadn't spoken to in months suddenly emailing clarification queries regarding old systems I hadn't touched since I was still considered junior when trying to reassign JIRA tickets under my name until they realized I wasn't in the damn building anymore. Then came the silence. Knock, not literal email subject line. Right conversation with a director I hadn't heard from since they asked me to stay in my lane during a cross-stream planning. During the meeting, I kindly mentioned their entire automation roadmap depended. I'd use a deprecated data pipeline Flagged twice, now they wanted A. Given your intimate experience with our systems, they wrote, we'd want to consider short-term consultancy engagement to stabilize key areas. Obviously, compensation will reflect your knowledge. I read that sentence 3 times, laughed once, and I responded with a smile so sharp it sliced through keyboard. My rate is 5 times what you used to pay me weekly up front, non-negotiable. Pushed submit, they responded within 1 hour. We'll get back to you as soon as possible. That night, I poured a drink. Something pricey, smoky, and earned my inbox dinged again, but not from leadership, from the rank and file. Quiet topic lines, short query. Looking for help you're hiring, I've opened. The first was a junior developer, one of the who used to sit across from me, but never make eye contact and look to jump ship. Claimed things felt wobbly. Leadership panicked that he remembered that I always seemed to have plan. I opened the second, a support specialist. Seek the same narrative. Training was overlooked, and the backlog had tripled. They wanted out, and just like I understood, I wasn't just auditing. I was no longer recruiting for Gen Axis. The official title hadn't changed yet, but with each passing hour, James' role evolved. Presented me to their CIO during lunch. They talked about establishing an internal compliance task force. Is tiny.